So this weekend, Marvel's hits theaters, and it's the lowest box office opening for an MCU film ever. The previous lowest opening was The Incredible Hulk, the second movie in the MCU 15 years ago, when ticket prices were much lower, and it still made $8 million more than this film, which would be, 15% more, something like that. 15 years ago, and Incredible Hulk was following Hulk, which was not a well-received film. All this 15 years ago. Easily the worst opening weekend ever for a Marvel movie, MCU film. Other important detail in here, it's a sequel to Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel opened to $150 million. It's a third, less than a third of what Captain Marvel opened to 4.5 years back. That raises the question, what on earth happened?
It makes no sense.
How do you have this big of a drop in a franchise that has been this popular? And anytime something goes so horribly wrong, it's generally speaking not like one thing. There's normally a whole perfect storm leading to such a bad result that 15 years later, we're getting the lowest box office ever in the most profitable film franchise of all time. Few days back, I put out a tweet where I listed 6 possible reasons. I've had a few more days to think about it. Likewise, when you make a tweet or an X or whatever you're supposed to call them, you only have so many characters, so I literally used up every character to make my tweet of 6. Now here's 10 reasons, my 10 guesses as to why the Marvels performed so epically bad this weekend. Reason number 1, it was too late. Captain Marvel came out nearly 5 years ago, and one of the reasons Captain Marvel did as well as it did is that it came out in the middle of the peak of the MCU between Infinity War and Endgame, just a couple months before Endgame, where she'd been teased in Infinity War. There's all this Endgame buzz. She gets pulled into all that excitement and thus overperforms. Now, of course, first female-led MCU film, that's huge. Of course, there are people who are interested in it, but also you have to, realistically speaking, it got an Endgame boost that was significant 4.5 years ago. 4.5 years ago. And in that time, she's made little cameos and things. Of course, she was in Endgame a couple of months later, but they've done nothing with her. And so all of that excitement, that momentum, that on top of the world, they waited too long and lost it. So, naturally speaking, when you take too long, you lose so much of your momentum. You lose so much of that energy that you had. Right along those same, and when they were building out the original heroes of the MCU, they appeared very frequently. Like, you kept seeing Tony Stark showing up in movies, and he had movies coming out, and then he started cameoing, and he's in Captain America movies, he's in a Spider-Man movie, and he's in the Avengers movies. Like, they showed up all the time. We haven't seen Captain Marvel, and it's been almost 5 years. Other problem, reason number 2, Captain Marvel isn't popular enough. Captain Marvel, the movie, made over $1 billion. You can't take that away. The movie was wildly successful at the box office. It made a lot of money. But you don't have a lot of people saying, that's my favorite Marvel movie. Not a lot of people saying that. You don't have a ton of people just raving about how she is her favorite character, the best development, or anything like that. And some of it is what I just said, that she had one movie, an important but small part in Endgame, and we haven't seen her for 4.5 years. Just not enough time with her to be incredibly popular, but the popularity of the finances of the movie Captain Marvel don't match the actual excitement for the character. Now, my 9-year-old wanted to go see the Marvels. My wife was excited to see the Marvels. There are people out there that were excited for the film, but not at the same level of excitement as there are for so many of the other characters, and certainly not billion-dollar level follow-up excitement. Reason number 3, it was a sequel to too much. What I mean by that, it's a follow-up to too many shows that not enough people watched. So what ends up happening here is that you put the movie out, and it's a sequel to Captain Marvel, WandaVision, Miss Marvel, and Secret Invasion. Now, everybody saw Captain Marvel. A lot of people watched WandaVision. Miss Marvel, Secret Invasion numbers dropped dramatically. You put out a movie that you watch the trailer, and one of the prominent key figures there is someone you've never watched a show from before. She's one of the stars, and you go, oh, I've never watched that show. I guess this isn't for me. You have a homework assignment. You have something you need to do before you can fully watch the movie. And a ton of people have been like, I don't think that's one of the reasons, because the MCU's always been like this. You've always needed to watch the other movies to fully understand. Like, okay, but there's a point in time where you go too far. There's a point in time where people can't keep up. There's a point in time where this strategy doesn't work quite right anymore. So, sure, it is true that MCU is always built on other films, but when you're putting out 3-4 movies per year, 3-4 TV shows per year, that's such a larger burden, in particular when you're making shows that are more demographically specific. Miss Marvel was very clearly designed for a younger demographic. There's nothing wrong with that. I have 2 girls in that demographic. I view that as a dad as a win. But it can have consequences if you're tying a show that is targeted towards a younger audience to a billion-dollar franchise that had very broad appeal. You tighten how broad the appeal is when you latch it onto something, to a show that has a tighter demographic focus. And when it's to 4 different things, that feels like a lot of homework that you need to do. Reason number 4, women didn't show up. Here's what I mean by this, the demographics for this. They made a movie that was designed to attract more women to it, to have representation, to not just have male superheroes. Let's make a movie, female superheroes, representation, and women didn't show up. According to Deadline, The Marvels was 65% males in attendance. Point of reference, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, 60% male. Wonder Woman, 6 years ago, 52% female. So back 6 years ago, Wonder Woman comes out, women show up to go see the film, guys still show up, gigantic hit. Previous MCU film we got was 60% male, just 60%. The Marvels was 65%. I fully appreciate that you want to expand the demographics for who is into Marvel. Superhero movies, it's dominated by dudes. It's like 60-40 split for dudes most of the time. Just like Guardians of the Galaxy 3, 60% dudes. A lot of them star dudes. Thus, you're like, let's expand who this appeals to. Let's give us female heroes. As a dad of daughters, I'm totally down for it. If it gets my wife more excited for all these Marvel movies I make her watch, totally down for it. But they made a movie that didn't actually do that. They made a movie or marketed a movie, whatever the packaging was here, it didn't do that. And I think one of the big gigantic misses in here is if you combined reason number 4 and reason number 3, you realize there's a big gap in the logic. Here's what I mean by that. They're intentionally trying to attract a new demographic or an underrepresented group of people in their viewership, women. They make a movie for women. But, reason number 3, they made a movie that's not a good on-ramp. They made a movie where it feels like you have to do a bunch of homework to fully appreciate the film. An on-ramp is a movie that feels like I don't need to do anything else. I'm joining in the MCU for the first time, so all I need to do is hop on board this thing. Wonder Woman was a great on-ramp. Captain Marvel, great on-ramp. Both of them were prequels telling a story about their character. So you see the trailer and you go, oh, I'm interested in that. I'll go watch it. But you watch the trailer for the Marvels and you know all these Disney Plus shows are out there and everything like that. The trailers, the movie itself didn't make it feel like an on-ramp. And it wasn't an on-ramp. You're just diving deep into MCU lore, which is fine if you make a movie for those of us that are soaked in it if you make a movie for your core audience that's already there, you can go deep with the lore. If you want it to be an on-ramp for new people and attracting a new audience, you can't have it require you watch a bunch of shows. That's not an on-ramp. Like, hey, understand this movie that's an on-ramp, go down those ramps over there too. So we got 4 on-ramps to get to the on-ramp. It doesn't work. You can't have this many, maybe a sequel to this many things and also try and use that as a mechanism to attract in and draw in new people. Reason number 5, the MCU brand is damaged. The MCU brand does not mean what it meant just a few years back. It doesn't stand for what it stood for before. For the first 25 films in the MCU, they were all certified fresh, they were all fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Certified fresh is actually something different. They were all fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, over 60%. And like when you're talking about your worst movie is Thor: The Dark World, and that was over 10 years ago, it's super mediocre, but it's not like embarrassing incompetence. It's just so bland and mediocre. So it doesn't leave a bad taste in your mouth. You're just like, I'll skip that one. And over the last several years, they've had more and more projects that were heavier and cringe, stepped on more toes, alienated more people, or just in general, people are like, I'm just not interested in that. For their first over 10 years, they were very broad appeal with all of their projects that they're trying to go 4-quadrant, male, female, all ages. They want everyone to be entertained by these big blockbusters. And some of that's been more focused more recently. And even like, look at something like Secret Invasion. It's about 2 men that are old talking about how they're getting old. It's a lot of it. Like, not as broad of appeal. Miss Marvel, very clearly aiming for teenagers. They're not going as broad appeal, and they're not all landing like they did before. There's more projects that are misses. There's more projects that don't sit right with people. There's more rotten projects on Rotten Tomatoes. The Marvels, as of right now, is at 62% on Rotten Tomatoes. It looks like it's probably going to end up being fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. But even as a fresh film, 2 years and 2 months ago, this would have been the lowest Rotten Tomatoes score for an MCU film. So even though it's fresh, just a couple years back, this would have been the low mark. It's the 3rd lowest as is of the movies. The brand isn't as strong. There's more and more headlines about treatment of VFX artists, reshoots, rewrites, their behind the scenes system not working right, mandated things from the higher ups. There's a lot more bad blood. There's a lot less goodwill. There's a lot more people like, I just can't keep up with all of it. The brand is damaged. It's not where it was before. Reason number 6, superhero fatigue. And when I say this one, when I say it, what I mean is that essentially, if you borrow a phrase from Coy Jandaro, the way he phrases it as, people aren't tired of comic book movies. They're tired of mid superhero movies. They're tired of mediocre superhero movies. There was a time not very long ago that anything with Marvel or DC in front of it would make money. People just wanted more comic book movies. They wanted to see more characters. They wanted more shared universes. So they made money even if they weren't very good. You can only do that so long. You can only saturate the market for so long, and people get bored of it. They're not bored of superhero movies. People were ecstatic about Across the Spider-Verse. People really dug Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But all the mid stuff, all the stuff that's like, yeah, another superhero movie with a lot of jokes. Another superhero movie with a sky beam, portals opening up. Seen it before. I need you to offer something new, a fresh new experience. Something interesting, something worth my time, because just the novelty of superhero movie, the novelty of team up movie, novelty of shared universe, the novelty of, oh, the post-credit scene teases this. We've done it all before. We've experienced it before. So the gimmick, the novelty is gone. They don't want just another silly fun movie. They want something worth going to the theater to see. Leading into number 7 on here, the trailers weren't very good. It had very lackluster trailers that promoted the movie on the gimmick, on the team up, and not on the story and plot. Thus, if you combine this with the last one, people want to see something new. They want something fresh. They want a story that's worth their time. And you promote it on, hey, it's another MCU comedy. We've already done that. I've already seen that. That gimmick doesn't work to just sell me on, hey, it's silly. Likewise, I can't speak for everyone. For me, the place swapping places gimmick always felt very pedestrian, very simplistic. It feels like that should be the plot of a TV show. And even to some extent, there was a kind of a thing like that going on with Loki in the Loki show that came out parallel to this, where he's time slipping and so he's popping all around like, shucks, it happened again. And then they make a movie with characters swapping around going, shucks, it happened again. It's a very TV kind of thing to do, but they did it in their sequel to the $1 billion film. And that's what they sold the movie on. Hey, look, they're swapping places. In an era where people are kind of bored of comic book, or like they want a special comic book movie, they just don't want more. They need something special. Being like, they're swapping places isn't the hook that you need to suck people in, to sell tickets, to be interesting enough. And likewise, the idea of promoting the movie, and look, it's a team up between these 3 characters. One of them, Captain Marvel, had a $1 billion film, but not one of the, they haven't done anything with her since Endgame, really, besides a couple cameos. Nothing with her in 4.5 years. And then we have, Photon, Monica, side character from WandaVision, where you're like, oh yeah, her. Oh yeah, I guess I'm cool to see more of her. And then Miss Marvel, character from a show with very low viewership for these Marvel Disney Plus shows. So the team up doesn't immediately make people go, oh! When you're thinking about fun, exciting crossovers with the amount of work they did to develop each of these characters and make them popular with the general public, it doesn't immediately go, oh, cool, team up movie. You don't immediately think that with these 3 characters because one of them, it's been too long, and 2 of them aren't established enough for the team up itself to be exciting. And that's what they marketed the film on. Look, they're teaming up. Look, they're trading places. Cool? I think that's cool. Is it cool? And it's silly. And there's jokes. And I had someone comment on my tweet about it, and he goes, and they keep using the freaking Beastie Boys. It's like, that's true. How many trailers use Beastie Boys, Holding Out for a Hero, these so overplayed songs, and we're gonna do our wild trailer to convince people this movie's different. Beastie Boys, one of the most overused bands to put in a trailer, and you're selling it on a gimmick and a team up that people aren't excited for. Reason number 8, the strikes. So this movie, its entire promotion run up until its release, literally right when it released, was a strike going on, so the actors couldn't promote the film. I don't know what the percentage is that this helps in the modern era. I think a lot of those kind of traditional, the movie star, traveling the globe, doing interviews to promote the movie, I don't think that has nearly the impact that it had during the era of movie stars in the 80s, the 90s, the zeros, simply because social media changed the game. Prior to social media, seeing a celebrity outside of a movie was fun and refreshing and exciting, and then they would show up on the show and they'd bring a clip so you could actually see a scene from the movie. that means nothing anymore. That means nothing because the clips are on YouTube. But back in the day, you'd hear Arnold was going to be on David Letterman talking about Eraser, and you'd get to see a scene from Eraser. I don't know why I picked Eraser of all the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies to pick, but that's the one that I went with. But that's gone. Social media means Arnold Schwarzenegger makes a video on his Instagram every single day. It means Brie Larson has a YouTube channel that we see them all the time. So the novelty of them being interviewed and seeing them outside of a movie is gone. And the fact that you get to see a clip or whatever, or you get to hear little nuggets or whatever, the internet has taken that all away. I just read a book called Opposable Thumbs about Siskel and Ebert, and one of the reasons the show was able to become so successful is because, once again, they showed clips from movies in the 70s, in the 80s, in the early 90s, when that was the only place that you could see clips from movies. So that you'd hear their opinion, and then they would show you clips, and wow, all that's gone. So I don't know what percentage of power there is to a celebrity doing interviews, but of course it helps. Of course it does. So if you can have all the ladies go on every talk show, doing interviews, doing the whole deal, YouTube interviews, all of it, and they're selling the movie, they're appearing everywhere, it just raises awareness, it raises goodwill if the interviews go well, and of course you will get more from that. If they're posting on their social media when you have someone with millions of followers saying, my movie comes out this weekend, here's behind the scenes pictures, here's us doing something quirky and fun, of course it raises awareness and it raises goodwill. What percentage that is, I don't know. But let's even play this out. Because I heard like Twitter's doing a lot of like, if not for the strikes, this movie would have. If not for the strikes, look at these other movies. They didn't have the strikes. Okay, let's play this out. Let's say it does a 50% increase. 50%. Like, there's no chance that celebrity interviews increase things by 50%. But let's say celebrity interviews and celebrity promotion raises it by 50%. The movie still makes less than $75 million here in the US. It's still less than half of what Captain Marvel opened to. If it raises it 50%, which it wouldn't, realistically, it's probably more like a 10% swing. 10% can be a lot. People are excited and you go out and promote that thing, and 10% swing, $100 million, I'd rather have $110 million. $200 million, I'd rather have $220 million. You do a 10% swing on $47 million, it's still the lowest opening. Still the lowest. Yikes. And you start at like, you have to get like this, to get out of that lowest spot, it has to be like 20%. I don't think celebrity interviews are that potent. But of course, if you have people out there promoting your movie that have audiences, of course it'll make a difference. Reason number 9, weak reviews. The reviews weren't that good. Currently, it is fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. So, they're not bad reviews. But, third lowest of all MCU films. Jump back in time, 2 years and 2 months ago, it is the lowest score, Rotten Tomato score for an MCU film. The reviews are not good for this film in terms of being an MCU film. They are bad compared to the average for MCU films. And a lot of us thought the score was going to be lower based off the fact that the embargo lifted late, based off some early murmurs, based off my experience watching the movie. I expected it to be lower. So if, wow, 62%, that's better than I expected. That's not a good sign. Not a good sign at all. But the other big problem with what the positive reviews did say is that they tie back into the superhero fatigue and the trailer problem, which is to say, and the damaged brand problem, which is to say, the positive reviews said, yeah, it's messy, but it's fun. Yeah, it's messy, but it was funny. Yeah, it was messy, but the characters had chemistry. There's no shortage of fun Marvel movies. There's no shortage of fun comic book movies. There's not a lacking for that. So, if that's the best thing you can say about the movies, that it's fun, all the people that are kind of tired with comic book movies, that's not a good enough sell. You don't win them over with, it's fun. I've already had fun Marvel movies. I've already done that. What else do you have to offer? Characters are fun. Okay, well, I can see them elsewhere, and I didn't care to watch them elsewhere yet. It's not a good selling point. Even the good reviews didn't sway all of the people that were skeptical. Every Marvel movie is called fun, except Wakanda Forever and Incredible Hulk. Every other Marvel movie is fun and funny. Every single one of them. If that's your best compliment, people aren't going to show up. You're not going to win anyone over with fun. And so I think that's the big problem. That's what it offered, and we've already had that. Final reason on here, the discourse online surrounding this film has just been unbelievably toxic. Both sides, both directions, everyone in the middle is just fed up and tired of it. They don't want any part of it. It's frustrating that this is what we feel the discourse has turned into. What do I mean by all of that? Of course, we all know like the angry side of the fandom that have put out 1 zillion thumbnails of Brie Larson and the same clip of I don't need a 40-year-old white dude. Like we know that side of it. The people that were angry about this movie as soon as it was announced. And then we also know about the other side, the group of people that if you don't like them, like broadly painting, like the real reason this movie isn't doing well is because of misogyny. Like these two things, every normal person in the middle is like just tired of it. Like, I just want to go to the movies. I don't want to join a culture war. I don't want you to call me an idiot if I like the movie, and I don't want you to call me sexist if I don't like the movie. Like, I just want to watch a movie. And the discourse, it's that stuff. My out of the theater reaction in it, come out like it's superficially fun. There's a lot of problems here. I really like Miss Marvel. I didn't really like this other part. It's fun, superficially fun, but a mess. Same exact video. I'm like, people are like, this is so biased. We know what you're really trying to say. And also people being like, you were paid off. You're a Disney shill. Why can't you just say it sucks? I just want to talk about movies. I don't want to join your culture war. I do this because movies are fun. Movies are an escape from the crap of the real world. Don't bring the crap of the real world into my fun talking about grown-ups in cosplay punching CGI aliens in the face. The discourse is so tiring. It's so exhausting that it just puts a certain level of like, I don't want to deal with that to a lot of people. Like, I don't want to be a part of that. And that's frustrating because this should be fun. You shouldn't be afraid that if you liked the movie, these people are going to come after you and tell you like you're an idiot, you dig up stuff about like, you shouldn't have to be afraid of being attacked for enjoying a fun movie. Likewise, you shouldn't be afraid about being honest about not liking a movie because you don't want to be called sexist, racist, or whatever else, whatever isms apply to whichever one. You shouldn't be afraid to share your reasonable opinions. Like if your review is like, I didn't like Captain Marvel because Brie Larson is an idiot and she's a moron, like, sure, okay, maybe some of these apply. Like if that's your thing, but you just didn't like the movie. It was too silly. It was too goofy. The story doesn't work, but you're afraid people are going to call you sexist. We've lost the plot. And I had a friend, people dug up old tweets about him to try and cancel him because he didn't like the movie. Had a friend get death threats because she did like the movie. What are we doing? All we're doing is like making the space unpleasant and so unbelievably toxic. Why can't we be normal? Like what? Just normal conversation. Did you like it? Did you not? Oh, what did you like? Oh, you thought it was fun because there's a lot of jokes and it moves fast and there's action. It's fun. Oh, gotcha. Oh, you didn't like it because the plot is messy. All right, fair enough. I understand where you're coming from. That makes a lot of sense. Simple enough. No need for insults, no need for being nasty, but people are tired of everything turning into a culture war, everything having name calling attached to it, and you just want to get off the internet and get away from it. That's not what this is supposed to be. So, why on earth did the Marvels so epically underperform and, for its budget, flop at the box office opening weekend? Looks like it's probably going to lose Disney a lot of money. It's all of it. I think so much of it, though, goes back to great marketing starts with a great product. That you really understand what people want, and if you got a great product, it's a whole lot easier to market. And if your idea is the right idea that actually scratches an itch, it's a lot easier to market it. And they made a movie that was a series of wrong ideas overlapped. It was too late. Captain Marvel wasn't as popular. The budget was too high. And then they threw in TV show characters, and it wasn't the right on-ramp to reach out to the new group of people they wanted to reach out to. So then how do you market a movie that already kind of had some issues? The script wasn't polished before they went into production. They had reshoots, had to try and fix it. So you get a movie that they were able to make it superficially fun with lots of jokes. But beyond that, it didn't work. Thus, how do you market it? There's not something there to market beyond the gimmick and the jokes and the fun. And we've already had that. We're tired of that. So here we are. That's my take on that. What do you think the reason is? Why did this movie so epically underperform? Let me know. Those of you that are in the live stream right now, those of you who are in the chat, not really looking to do a Q&A now, but if we got some talk about the Marvels and why it did the way it did, maybe we can talk about that just a bit.